Welcome to Cinemaholics. I'm Jon Negroni, your usual co-host for the show, doing another instant take, a straight out of the theater reaction, this time to a new movie called The Substance. The Substance, which is definitely one of those trickier movies to talk about right after you watch it, just because this is just... you need time to process a movie like The Substance, and that said, I'll do my best to give you my initial impression of this thing, which definitely has a lot of attention. This is one of the big standouts from the Cannes Film Festival earlier this year. It won Best Screenwriting. I think the director won the Best Screenwriting award. She also wrote the film. This is from Coralie Fargeat. Listen, French is not my language. I am terrible at French in general, so I apologize. I completely probably butchered that name, but she is the director of a movie that I really liked from a few years ago called Revenge. Nice thriller of a movie, really well regarded, and rightfully so, in my opinion. And this movie is, in a sense, kind of a kind with Revenge, but The Substance is very much its own thing, very much the kind of film that is shooting for the fences. It is a body horror movie, and it's coming to us from Mubi. They're the ones distributing this. Mubi, if you haven't heard of it, that's MUBI, wonderful streaming service for cinephiles, people who love independent film. And they've been releasing some of their own stuff for a while now. I forget which ones they've done in the past, but I remember at least one, maybe two before. I want to say not Past Lives, Decision to Leave. It was some film along those lines from not too long ago. But anyway, The Substance stars Demi Moore, and again, going to go into a bit more detail when I actually do a full-on review of the movie. I have to hope that Will Ashton will be watching this film, because it is definitely a Cinemaholics review kind of situation. I feel like both of us need to talk about it together, because while watching it, I genuinely believe this is what we in the business call a Will Ashton movie. Will Ashton movies, you know them when you see them. He'll know it when he sees it, that's for sure. I'll be very light on the plot, but essentially, Demi Moore plays this kind of washed-up celebrity from the 80s who comes across this mysterious ability or scientific breakthrough, although it's very secretive, that could help her relive her younger days, hence the body horror, and boy, is there a lot of it. The Substance is one of those movies where I genuinely have to marvel at the audacity of the thing, but also just how well done this screenwriting is. If you've ever watched a movie and you felt like this has its own style, it has its own vision, it has its own flair and sense of place and world. For me, one of the standout movies like that from last year was Poor Things. Poor Things was just such a striking movie that really cemented itself in my brain. There was no other movie like it when I watched it. That is very similar to my reaction to this. This is very much like, even though I'm thinking of so many other movies during this, because this borrows heavily from a lot of things, and people who are fans of Carpenter, if you're a fan of the Cronenbergs and all of that, this is a mishmash of a lot of different movies, but not in the worst way, not in the bad way that I think sometimes those movies can be, where they don't have their own identity. They don't, like I said, they don't have their own vision, their own sort of sense of place and appeal and all that. But The Substance is definitely along the lines of like a Giallo film. I kind of joked that it, to me at least, is a better remake of Suspiria than the 2018 Suspiria, quite honestly, because it carries on the tradition of Giallo films. That is the style of horror that is a little bit more esoteric. It's a little bit more heightened. You have the buckets of blood. You have the social commentary for sure. But in the case of The Substance, I never felt like the social commentary was pretentious. It is very on the nose. It is very of the moment and timely and all those buzzwords. But it's also kind of reaching for something very primal, right? It's not trying to tell you something you didn't already know. It's just sort of speaking upon a very basic truth about identity and body dysmorphia and self-shame and all of these things that we know about instinctively, but it's using this wild movie to drill home these like innate fears that I think we all have. I think that's why the movie is getting so much, I think, applause from people, in spite of a lot of its blemishes. And because there are certain things about the movie that I just think are total misses. But it's one of those things where I think that you can fault it for little missteps, but it never feels like they are accidental. It feels like the director is just kind of trying to do it this way and is trying to make a movie that's a bit sloppy and doesn't really make sense because she wants you to just sort of get sucked into her world and not really think twice about it. So if you go into this movie with the knives, right, and you're looking for logical fallacies, you're looking for things that, along those lines, those cinema sins, for lack of a better term, you're definitely going to have a rough time. I think that it's not built for that. This movie is built to make you feel something, and to make you feel something over think about something, because it's telling you something, like I said, primal and innate about body fears, but it's not doing it in a way that you're supposed to sit down and have a long discussion philosophically about these things. No, it's one of those things where you're going to be talking with somebody who just watched it with you, trying to process what you saw as best you can through the language of film and talking about other films and what this movie makes you think of. You know, stepping out of this movie, I was in good company. I don't want to name drop them because they might not appreciate me bringing them up, but definitely somebody who I've worked with a lot over the years, who's a wonderful fellow film person. And we just kind of were going back and forth on like, what movies were you thinking about? I brought a Videodrome, for example, and I think there's just so many that you can bring up. And I definitely hesitate to even say that, because sometimes I think that people hear that and they say, well, why should I watch it? What is it really doing that's original? Is this movie original? This movie is original. Do not worry about that. You are not going to struggle to find originality in the substance. It's just that it feels like a movie made by somebody who loves movies. It's as simple as that. I haven't brought up a lot of the rest of the cast because I want to save that for the full review, but I'll bring up at least two. That's Margaret Qualley, who plays the quote-unquote younger version of Demi Moore. And there's also Dennis Quaid. I think Dennis Quaid, who, coming off of Reagan, hilarious that he is in this movie, but he is hamming it up. He is having more fun in this movie than I think I've ever seen him have fun in any movie ever, which I guess isn't saying that much, but it's definitely saying a lot right now for me. But I gotta say, Demi Moore, this is her movie. I think the performance she's giving in this movie is jaw-dropping stuff. I genuinely just so impressed with her as a human being. And an actor, of course, on top of that. But I just think that going there with this movie is just such a statement. It's just such a, like, I do not care. I'm going to give a performance that's going to knock your socks off and you're going to love it. And congratulations, you got to watch it. Like that is the attitude that she has going in. It's tough then to talk about Margaret Qualley because she has a very thankless role in some ways. Because she is this character who, again, I can't get into detail because there's so much with this movie that I just do not want to get into too deeply. But I think that the safest way to put it is I think Moore kind of overshadows Qualley quite a bit. And I think even Qualley would say, like, well, yeah, that's kind of the movie. Like, I'm not supposed to be the one who, like, that's not the point. And it's tough for me, I guess, because I've definitely been struggling with how I feel about Qualley as an actress. I think that she has seen a lot of success, and I had a hard time really connecting with her character in Drive Away Dolls earlier this year. So I was looking forward to this movie, maybe kind of showing me something that maybe I was missing with that film. But I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence with what I think the appeal of this actor is and where her talents lie. Obviously, she's super talented, and I would never. I wouldn't besmirch her in that way, but I guess I just struggle to kind of like recognize like what it is about her that has people so like, wow, like she's like the next, amazing film actor. And I don't know if I agree with that. But I'm open-minded, of course. And I think that it's impressive that she is making movies that are risky and interesting along these lines. And I'm definitely impressed with her performance. It's just, once you see more in this movie, I mean, the movie belongs to her, and there are stretches of this movie where I just was missing her. I was missing her a lot, and she just brings it. So that's about all I'll get into. That's all I think I really can get into. I mean, I definitely, this definitely hits that tier. This is one of those movies that I can smell and taste, and just it's so sensory. It hits you on everything that I think that you might be hopefully looking for in a movie like this. But again, it's body horror, so if that's not really your jam, this isn't the movie that's going to convert you. But I think if you've listened this far in, you probably are already aware of where your tastes lie in those regards. Easy movie to recommend for the screenplay. I think it did win that award deservedly based on my impression. And between the performances, the screenwriting, and just this production design is just so, I think just like it's deceptively simple, but I just feel this world. And with the exception of some more sloppy elements, I think while the writing is very good, some of it's a little bit too predictable. But then once you think you've got the movie figured out, let me be clear, you don't. It comes back around and wipes the floor with you. But, well, wipes the floor with me at least. But there were just some moments that I thought were a little hackneyed, where I don't think they necessarily needed to be. But since I was so into the movie by that point, I was able to easily just kind of shrug that stuff off. I mean, there's just no way that my mind had time, or room to really think. So that's The Substance. I'm preparing myself to see lots of headlines, movie headlines that, say substance over style or substance and style and stuff like that. You'll probably see plenty of that coming because it's fair. I think that it's a movie with substance. It's a movie with style. The idiom checks out. And yeah, if you're planning to see this one, get ready. It's coming to theaters September 20th in the United States. I think it's going to be hitting France, if that's where you're at, later this fall. I think probably November is when it's going to roll out there. So definitely, if you've been looking forward to this one, if you know like some of the movies I've mentioned, particularly Giallo films, Suspiria, Cronenberg, even, Brandon Cronenberg. So if you like things like Infinity Pool, Possessor, stuff like that, this is a movie nicely in that category. I think you'll probably have a good time. Definitely a movie theater movie. Definitely a movie to see with an audience, I thought, because if you're going to squirm, everybody's going to squirm. And this is one of those things where I was definitely laughing, and we were having a great time in the audience. Mostly film critics. It wasn't a promo screening, so the fact that you had a bunch of like stuffy, snobby film critics like myself sitting in that theater laughing, hooting and hollering even at times, that's how you know you're probably in for an experience at the Movieplex. So that's The Substance. It's going to be rolling out in theater soon. Maybe you'll check it out. Maybe you won't. But if you like it, let us know. And then we'll have The Substance, the full-on review coming up too with Will Ashton once he sees it. And I cannot wait. I'm counting down the days. Thanks for listening. Hey, look, if you like Cinemaholics, we've been putting out a little bit more stuff recently, trying to do more of these instant takes because the Beetlejuice one went over pretty well. People seem to enjoy that. And I do enjoy decompressing after watching movies, so it seems to work. But if you want the show to keep going and you like how the show's going and all that stuff, a couple things you can do. Nicest thing you can do, honestly, is leave us a 5-star rating if you can on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Helps us find new listeners of the show. Super helpful. We definitely love hearing from you, though, in terms of like your voice. So in addition to being able to email us or checking out the Discord, you can also go on the Swell app. There's a link to it in the show notes, and you can leave us a voicemail if you want to hear your voice on the show, and we'll filter it too. Obviously, if you leave us nonsense, we won't publish that. But yeah, if you leave a voicemail, you can ask us a question, bring up something we discussed, like The Substance, Beetlejuice, whatever it is. Be sure to do that, and of course leave your name and all that good stuff too. But don't get too personal. We'll have to edit that stuff out, right? And we don't want you to get doxxed. But anyway, that's all. Talk to you all on the next one. See you next time. All that stuff. Bye.